There were movies that actually came out in 2020, surprisingly, and I saw 36 of them, so why don't I rank them today on this handy-dandy video? Yes, that's right, I saw 36 movies, surprisingly, and don't get me wrong, I wanted to watch more, because I remember last year I saw 50? And I had probably 50 in, my watch list. At a certain point I just said fuck it, and just kept striking them off the list because I was just not super interested, and I was like, well, there wasn't that many movies that came out this year anyway, so why would I even bother? So yeah, don't fault me if this list is a little shoddy and a little lacking in variety. It was kind of a hard year to see stuff. And by the way, I also got into other stuff during the year too. I kind of took the time to see things I had never seen before. I got into Neon Genesis Evangelion this year. My past couple months I've been super invested into watching Twin Peaks. So TLDR, I guess. It was very hard to see things this year that came out in 2020 because of COVID, and because I just did not have an interest in a lot of the stuff that was getting pushed onto these streaming platforms. This was also a cringy year in cinema. Don't get me wrong, there was a lot of terrible things going on this year in general. But in the world of cinema, we had cringy crap. Like The Mandalorian, all of the controversies with that. I saw the first season and it was fine, but then I see the gosh darn terrible CGI and the cringy reactions to the Luke Skywalker thing.
I'd like to build the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees on the earth. I'd like to
And the craze for Megan is Missing on TikTok was another really low moment in cinema history. If you've never seen Megan is Missing before, it's one of the worst horror films ever made, probably.
Can I bring Amy?
Man, this is a party, not church. What is it with you and this girl? You fucking her? She got blackmail on you? What?
She's my friend. She's not a fucking loser like the rest of you.
Yeah, well, I got a reputation to think about. I run the best parties, and you are my premier party girl. You bringing Amy along could take away that crown.
The director even made a TikTok saying, don't watch the movie if you're easily scared.
Hello, my friends on TikTok. This is Michael Goy, the writer-director of Megan is Missing. It was exploding on TikTok at the moment. I didn't get to give you the customary warnings that I used to give people before they watched Megan is Missing, which are, do not watch the movie in the middle of the night. Do not watch the movie alone.
Wow, Michael, I'm really scared. It's not like you just made an advertisement for your movie for more TikTok kids to watch it or anything. Don't even think about watching it. It's exploitative, it's trash, and no wonder TikTok is eating it up. I see this all over Reddit. Well, why don't we make an Among Us movie? Dude, Among Us is it's such a crazy game. You don't know who's who. You don't know if one guy's an imposter or not. There should be an Among Us movie. How come there hasn't been an Among Us movie made yet? That's such an original idea. It's like nobody's ever thought of that before. So yeah, enough with me complaining about shit. I'm going to talk about movies now that came out in 2020, from worst to best. Let's start this list off with an incredible masterpiece of a film that's not terrible in any way, and that would be the crazy, amazing film Assassin 33 AD, which I'm sure you've heard of before. If you haven't, I'll let you in on the secret of the film. It's very Islamophobic, and I would not say that if it wasn't true, because I do not like labeling things.
Finally, A world without filthy Christian scum.
It's about guys who go back in time to kill Jesus Christ. It's a Christian film, but it's got like humor in it. It's got like Christian values along with the humor. Why this concept? Why? Do we really need the stereotypical Muslim terrorist characters in this film? They go back in time, and I think Jesus says, "I'll be back."
I'll be back.
A la Terminator, you know, with the time travel plot, right?
I'll be back.
This film is also really badly shot, really badly acted. Don't watch it. Now we move on to Gal Gadot's second most embarrassing fuck-up this year. Wonder Woman 1984. What to say about this movie other than it's genuinely unhinged, nonsensical as hell, and it gets goofier and goofier as it goes along. One of the most terrible climaxes to a film I've ever seen. It's one of the biggest misfires a studio has ever greenlit in cinema history, in my opinion. I haven't seen a superhero film this bad since, like, Amazing Spider-Man 2. Really badly acted. There's a lot of really questionable decisions made with the scripting. Why is Chris Pine's character back in the form that he's in? If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. It's very, very weird. And Gal Gadot is terrible here. The CGI is awful, too. There's a lot of moments where the CGI looks really fake. I died laughing as well when there was a really obvious fake baby that she caught and like rolled to the ground with. That was really, really goofy looking. It also has one of the worst Donald Trump metaphor characters I've ever seen in a movie. Pedro Pascal, Maxwell Lord, really, really bad character. I didn't understand his motivations in the film. The whole thing with his powers and how he got them were very undefined and not really clear. It's so hard to take any of the dramatic things seriously in this movie when it's so badly written, so badly acted, and so badly directed. I mean, first film was fine. This movie, don't even think about watching if you have any sense of decency to yourself. Number 34 on my list is Mulan, the Disney live-action remake. This is just another example of Disney's really terrible pandering. I'm not even a huge fan of the original film, but what they've done to the character of Mulan here is like just terrible. Turned her into a generic superhero. I think I turned it off like 30 minutes in.
Let's get down to business to defeat the Huns. Let's get down to business to defeat the Huns.
At number 33 is this really terrible Seth Rogen comedy. It's really stupid. I saw like the first 30 minutes of this too. It's really not, it's not funny. At 32, we have Mortal, which is trying to be an interesting take on the superhero genre, directed by Andre Overdahl of Troll Hunter fame, and he also directed The Autopsy of Jane Doe. Both of those movies are really good. The problem with this movie is it's just boring. It's well shot, decently directed, but the acting's really bad too. I think one of the Wolf brothers plays the lead character, and he's really bad. It's really, really not very interesting to watch. It's overlong. And it's too bad because Andre Overdahl's career is just kind of, every single movie he's made has gotten worse. Next is The Platform, which is another one of those like social commentary films that just does nothing really very new to bring to the table. You get the point of the movie in the first 5 minutes, and then it spends the rest of the film developing a plot that goes nowhere and has characters that are really not interesting at all. Number 30 on the list is Bill and Ted Face the Music. The original two films are great. This one isn't. I guess I liked seeing some of the classic characters from the previous films come back, but Keanu Reeves is really bad in this. Alex Winter does a good job kind of bringing the energy back to the role, but Keanu just seemed so out of place. Everything that made the originals great has kind of been lacking in this. But at the end of the day, who's going to sit down and say this movie's at the level of the original two? At number 29, we have The Lodge. Pretty bad horror film. It's got atmosphere, but that's about it. It's trying to get into that, like, cold, scary, wintry atmosphere, and that's fine, but don't do that and have the balls to put The Thing into your movie as, like, the characters are watching it, because you're just going to draw comparisons to that and fail every time, because that movie is a masterpiece, and you cannot top The Thing.
I know you gentlemen have been through a lot. And when you find the time, I'd rather not spend the rest of this winter tied to this fucking couch!
You cannot. At number 28, we have the Nicolas Cage-led Color Out of Space. I'll give it some credit. It looks pretty. The film has a good look to it. I can distinctly recall what the visual style was in my head. This movie is really, really dumb. The characters suck. I hate how it's an H.P. Lovecraft story and it takes place in the modern day and people talk like it's a modern day movie. Why don't we just have the film take place when Lovecraft wrote these kind of stories? It would befit the style of this horror so much better to do that. Nicolas Cage overacts. If you like that kind of thing, I guess go for it. You'll enjoy this movie, but if you don't, then don't watch this, because it gets very annoying after the first 15 minutes. The special effects in this were decent as well, but like I said, there's really not much of value here when it's encapsulated in a lot of really dumb ideas. Of course, with it being 2020, we had to have a movie that took the horrors of 2020 and turned it into an actual horror film, that being Host. No, not The Host, the Stephanie Meyer novel. I think that's who wrote that. And it's not the Bong Joon-ho movie either. Now, this is a Zoom horror movie. It has some creepy moments. It doesn't really overstay its welcome. I think it's only like an hour long. It's pretty predictable. There's a really goofy moment at the end with a Snapchat filter for the ghost that I was like, oh, come on, really? At number 26, we have Onward. Pixar definitely did not knock it out of the park with this film. The voice acting was really kind of bad, and I would not really recommend it to anyone. The fantasy concept was kind of goofy. Luckily, Pixar definitely made a movie that was worth talking about, which I'll get to later. At number 25, we have a movie that was incredibly disappointing in a lot of different ways, and that is Borat 2. I don't know, I'm a huge fan of the original. It's really funny. It's a very subversive comedy. It's got very genuine political commentary with this wrapped in this like over-the-top comedy concept that is pretty ballsy for the time, and it still is an excellent comedy, like I said. This film is kind of satire for dummies. Sacha Baron Cohen, I guess, brought energy to the role again, but at what point does the film go beyond satire into propaganda against a certain person? The editing in this was kind of bad because it was revealed later on that they edited things out to fit their narrative better and change how things actually happen in real life. This is also problematic of the film too, is that in the original you could tell people were genuinely mortified when Borat said these horrible things, and you could tell that they were actual people interacting with him. With this, my one concern going into that was like, how are they going to replicate that with that character being so popular to this day? And the way they do it was kind of dumb to me, and when they had moments where Borat was doing his shtick from the original, I don't know, it was not as genuine to me as it was in the original, and I was questioning whether or not it was real for majority of the runtime. The movie wasn't devoid of anything funny. I will say, the film did a really good job kind of inserting into the plot COVID and how COVID kind of impacted the film. I liked how they put that stuff in the film. There was some really funny moments with that, especially with Tom Hanks. That was great. Next up on the list is Extraction, the Chris Hemsworth action film. Chris Hemsworth plays the action lead pretty decently in this. There were moments of legitimately really well filmed and well choreographed action in this. I also laughed out loud when he beat several small children. That was kind of unexpected. I don't know how they're going to make a sequel to this. I've heard that they are trying to make a sequel to it. I don't know. It was entertaining for what it was. I had a decent time with it. Maybe it is too low on this list. I don't know. I just remember there's a really dumb subplot with the dude from Stranger Things that went nowhere. And if it had just focused on the action plot more, it would have probably been a much better movie. Number 23 is The Vast of Night. Kind of a hyped, touted movie from this year. It takes a while to get going. I really did not like the first 15 minutes of this. Very talky, very film school script. The characters are fine. Once it gets past that opening talky portion and gets into actually kind of dramatic and creepy sequences, that's when the film plays into its concept very well. The ending might seem like a cop-out to some, but I thought it worked for what they set up. I'll be interested to see what this director does in the future, because this movie was actually interesting, if not really flawed and messy. Number 22, we have #Alive. Great performances, really did not bring much to the table in the zombie genre to me. It was fun. Hour and 30 minutes. Like I said, nothing really super original. Number 21 is Relic. Australian horror film. You could tell, like The Lodge, which was previously on the list, both of these movies suffered from hereditary copycat syndrome. They had the tone of Hereditary down to a T. I guess if you really, really like depressing, dark horror films, I guess those would be great for you. This one, I guess, was better acted than The Lodge, which is why it's higher on the list. Number 20 is Let Him Go, dramatic western with Kevin Costner and Diane Lane. Surprisingly, I'm not a huge Kevin Costner fan. He's kind of the worst aspect of a lot of the movies he's in. His acting is so
The fierce one, as I call him, seems a very tough fellow. I hope I never have to fight him. I like the quiet one immensely. I produced a coffee grinder, something none of them had seen before. And the country is everything I dreamed it would be. There can be no place like this on Earth.
Surprisingly, I actually thought he did a pretty good job in this movie. Diane Lane as well. They kind of string along this really not so great plot that you kind of see where it's going 25 minutes in. If your parents don't really like crazy movies, if they like just, bare bones kind of, okay, this is what it is, movies, then I would recommend. It's well acted enough, I think, to where a majority of people will enjoy it. Number 19 on the list is Another Round. This is from the director of The Hunt and The Celebration, which are both really, really excellent movies. This film was, I don't know, just didn't really connect with it. It just was not really holding my interest very much. I don't know if it's just a disconnect between me and the concept of the film. It just didn't really work completely. I can see why people really like this movie. Mads Mikkelsen does a really good job playing a pretty grounded and realistic character, and the contrast between him and his buddies in this movie is really kind of noteworthy and special about the script. I don't know. It was not really very interesting to me. The drinking concept kind of bothers me as a person who is not interested in those kind of thought experiments at all. I don't know. If you like Thomas Vinterberg's movies, I would highly recommend checking out The Celebration and The Hunt first. Those are shocking and great dramas. Maybe watch it after those. Number 18 on the list is After Midnight. Pretty low-budget horror film that kind of mixes horror and romance. The romance plot is interesting to a fault, where it kind of detracts from the horror of the movie. This film was decent. It was well made. You could tell that the director, who is also the star of the film, has put a lot into making this. It feels like a passion project of his. You could tell that they were actually having a lot of really solid ideas behind this. And it does have one of the funniest scenes of a movie from this year. It made me laugh so hard. That was one of the best sequences from a movie this year, and it's what everybody talks about after seeing the movie, but everything else in the film was not really super noteworthy. Like I said about The Vast of Night, I'll be interested to see what this director does from here on out. Number 17 on the list is Long Gone Summer, documentary about the 1998 home run race between Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa. Being a huge baseball fan, baseball nerd that I am, was kind of a must-watch for me. Both of these guys are incredibly interesting. Sammy Sosa scares the living daylights out of me. This movie does talk quite a bit about the home run race, the drug scandal that goes along with that discussion. This is kind of one of those films where I would only recommend it to a sports fan. It's really not super interesting if you're not really knowing a lot about the topic before seeing this. So, next up is The Five Bloods, directed by Spike Lee, released on Netflix. Probably heard of it. It's one of the movies that made the biggest dime this year. It's really, really interesting for the first half. And then the second half kind of goes off the deep end. There's a lot of plot holes. He has this kind of slow-moving drama talking about the horrors of war and its effect on our veterans from the Vietnam War today. And that stuff is really interesting, but then it gets into this like weird subplot about mines being left in Vietnam, and like you can't, the mines might get you, and we have a gruesome death scene where somebody steps on a mine, and then we go into this whole subplot with Chadwick Boseman, which I will say has a really great aspect to it, where Chadwick Boseman plays this group of veterans, their leader from the Vietnam War. All of the veterans themselves play their younger selves in the flashback sequences, which I thought was great. That's a really fun idea. I saw people complaining about that, and I was like, that's one of the better aspects of the movie. When you yourself are imagining things from your past, it's hard to imagine yourself back then. You kind of insert yourself from that time into your memories and flashbacks from long ago. So I thought that was a unique way of exploring that. So I do respect Spike Lee as a filmmaker, and that is certainly an aspect that I can bring attention to and say, this is great. The ending had a lot of tacked on forced messages that just kind of seemed very forced. I'll say that. Editing Brian here. I can't believe I forgot to mention Delroy Lindo's incredible monologue and acting performance in this. There's a scene where he directly addresses the audience about 3/4 of the way in that is amazing. One of the best acting performances of the year. He should be nominated for Best Supporting Actor for that scene alone, and I'm ashamed that I did not mention it in my initial review, so I just wanted to insert it here. Thanks. Number 15 will surprise quite a bit of people. It's Underwater. Box office flop. I saw it on a whim. I thought, oh, this looks okay. It reminded me of the Cloverfield movies, and I said, you know, why not? We'll check it out. And this movie is fun. It's very, very energetic. It's got it moves super fast. The acting is fine for what it is. I will not spoil it, but the ending is amazing. It introduces a famous literary character, we shall say. It was a genuine surprise. I really enjoyed seeing that. And yeah, for what this movie was, it was perfectly enjoyable. I'm not saying it's some work of art. It doesn't need to be. Coming in at number 14 on the list is Freaky. You know, this movie probably would have made a ton of money if it had come out in a regular year. It's in the Blumhouse horror realm. This feels like in the same vein as those Happy Death Day movies. I actually thought this movie was even better than those, actually, though. Vince Vaughn gives a great performance, playing two different characters. He was basically the highlight of the movie, all of the interactions he had. I loved the opening of this. Really funny. Paying tribute to the Friday the 13th movies. Really, really great first 10 minutes. It was enjoyable for the most part. It's not without its dumb moments, and it's not without its kind of cliched and corny and forced moments, but it was enjoyable, and I laughed. It was fun. Next up on the list is a very flawed but enjoyable movie as well, The Invisible Man, directed by the same guy who made Upgrade, which is a really enjoyable and action-packed horror film that felt like it could exist in the same universe as this version of The Invisible Man. Elizabeth Moss is really great in this. She gives a great performance. You really sympathize with her. They do a really good job of making her a sympathetic character right off the bat. I really liked how they surprised you in a lot of ways. There was a lot of shocking moments. Came out of nowhere. Unfortunately, this movie just does not fully come together in the end for me. There's a lot of stupid moments that detract from the horror concept. A lot of moments where you're like, huh? Like, why wouldn't somebody say something there? Why is this character suddenly being antagonistic towards this person? And the plot twist I kind of predicted 30 minutes in, when a certain character was introduced. I was like, okay. I really hope that doesn't happen. Number 12 is the movie with the worst fan base of 2020, because I'm gonna get shit putting this at number 12. Great director, I'm not taking anything away from his accomplishments, but number 12 is I'm Thinking of Ending Things, directed by Charlie Kaufman. I just did not connect to this movie at all, and this will also shock people who love his films too, but I think he's kind of a worse version of David Lynch. David Lynch gets frequently called pretentious, and I never hear people call Charlie Kaufman pretentious. When I have to look up the meaning of your movie after seeing it, like 5 or 6 days after seeing it, because it's such a mess, that means the movie is not really striking the intended message or mood that it was going for. Like I said, I can really appreciate the thematic elements of this. It was directed really well. Charlie Kaufman can't take any of his accomplishments away from him. The acting in this film is great too. There's a lot of moments that are genuinely shocking and work. But when your film is long, and like I said, just is a mess, it really detracts from those great moments. And unfortunately, I just couldn't get into the film enough to give it a high placement on the list. That's really all I can say about it. Wish I could have liked it more.